Hey, and welcome to The Noble Marriage, where we bring real, raw, and relatable conversations about life and marriage. I'm Travis.
And I'm Adele, and welcome to episode 10. Today's conversation I am really excited about. I think that we are in a world full of mental health issues, and that's what we're going to be discussing today.
And hopefully you watched the bonus episode prior to this. I think you'll get a lot more value and understanding out of this one. Should we start with gratitude before we talk about what last episode was?
Yes, let's not make it into a 17-minute video, though. Bonus episode.
Right. So I'm grateful for you for breakfast this morning. You made the best toast. Thank you.
It's Travis's Tasty Toast.
The best toast ever. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And you served it to me, and I appreciate that.
Thank you for that. My gratitude is how patient and easygoing you were on our vacation. Wow, I was so attracted to you all week, just how you were being, and you weren't allowing things to get under your skin and frustrate you, and there was plenty for that to happen.
Yes.
And I would look at you what's he gonna do? How's he gonna react? And you were just smooth sailing.
Thank you.
Sailing. You see what I did there?
I did. Because we were sailing on a cruise. I get it.
Yes.
Thank you. I felt the peace and patience and self-control of God.
Yeah.
I told you that too. I went into the restroom at one of the port of calls, and I felt like the Holy Spirit was saying, you are about to exercise an opportunity for patience.
Yeah.
Right after this. And I did.
He walked out of the bathroom, and I'm like, they've canceled our excursion.
and we have nothing to go to. And I'm like, oh, well.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't expect that. So it was awesome.
Thanks for that gratitude.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's dive into the episode. Oh, let's talk about what last week was.
Yeah, well, let's talk about what episode 9 was. So it was all about how to process emotions after trauma. And we all go through trauma, whether it's big or little. And so I really encourage you, go back, watch episode 9. It is so good.
Yeah, every single one of us goes through something in our lives where we will have emotions that will get trapped in us that we need to process and work through life with. Yes. And that is just a great way for you to give you information on how to process emotions in a very healthy, God-honoring way.
And today's episode, we're going to be talking about how when we don't process our emotions from trauma, it leads to mental health conditions. And in this episode, we're going to be sharing how Travis suffered from PTSD, and one of the incidences that happened that was really traumatic in your life that wasn't processed properly, and it led to PTSD.
Yeah, I want to be clear as I'm talking about this. I'm talking about me, my experience with PTSD, what I went through. And I'm not comparing mine to yours or my mental health issues to anyone else's. But this is some great information about how I did work through the things and issues that I was experiencing.
Yeah, and maybe you know someone who suffers from PTSD or mental health conditions, or maybe you yourself are struggling with that right now. And we just hope that as you watch this or listen to this, that you're going to find healing and answers that you've really been looking for on how you can move forward from where you are right now.
Yes, we're going to give some great practical tools at the end of this that will really give step by step a very effective way to be able to do that yourself.
Yeah. And we'll also put resources below in the description as well.
Yes.
All right.
Scroll down.
Yes. Take it away, babe.
Okay, this is from our book.
Yep, our book, which is in the process of being reviewed, so with a publisher. So we just ask for your prayers about that. And this is from a chapter called "Secrets Make Me Sick."
Secrets Make Me Sick. This is the chapter I wrote, and this is just an excerpt of it. It took about 1 year of me working in law enforcement and stuffing emotions before I started having nightmares when I would try to sleep. I wasn't a big alcohol drinker at the time, and I didn't really like how it made me feel. However, I didn't like the nightmares worse than I didn't like the taste of alcohol. So I started sitting in a rocking chair at home, alone, late at night, staring at a wall, and drank until I felt I was able to go to sleep. This is how I started drinking to get to sleep. And this behavior continued for years before Adele asked me if I thought I was drinking too much. I had no idea how I would sleep if I didn't drink. Then the incident happened.
Let's pause right there. You're talking about stuffing emotions. You're talking about this started at a year in law enforcement. So how old were you?
I think 23, 24.
Okay, so you were young. And I imagine you'd been stuffing emotions before that. But now you're being exposed to traumatic incidences.
Exactly, yeah.
That you don't know what to do with these emotions. So you're stuffing them and you're finding that you're getting nightmares and that you're having a hard time sleeping. And so tell us, talk about not sleeping well and the impact that had on your life because of the drinking and the nightmares.
Yeah, I would lay in bed at night and my thoughts would just run rampant in my mind. And I felt like there's no possible way I would ever get sleep. And I would feel panicky and I would look at the clock and hour after hour after hour. And I would think, how in the world am I going to get to sleep tonight? And then I would tell myself, I'm not going to sleep tonight. And I would just experience sleeplessness night after night after night. And when I would get to sleep, it felt like these nightmares would come on just so strong, and they would be vivid and real. And it would wake me up and sweating. I would wake up all sweaty, and I didn't like that experience either. I didn't like either one of those experiences. And so I discovered that alcohol helped initially for me to be able to get to sleep.
It helps you fall asleep quickly, but we
Yes.
know that with the sugar that's in the alcohol, you're actually not sleeping well. Your brain does not actually sleep.
I mean, later on, I discovered that absolutely, you're right, Adele, that horrible. It's a horrible decision, and it has horrible side effects on myself and my body. And it does help initially get to sleep faster, but then it's not a restful sleep. It's not a good sleep. It's an interrupting sleep. It doesn't allow you to get to the deep levels that's really required for the rejuvenation of your body and mind. And it depletes your body of really necessary microbes and minerals and
The things needed
can be
to
dehydrating. I mean, there's so many things that could just not be great with it, as well as the mood altering, which we could get to.
Yeah, I mean, sleep is so valuable. And when you're not getting good sleep and then you have trauma and alcohol on top of that, it makes sense why you had a mental health decline right there. How many traumas do you think you had between the last episode where we talked about your first trauma, which was on day one, which you should go back and watch that. That was episode 9. It was so good. He talked about the first significant trauma you were exposed to. And then now we're at a year into our marriage. How many traumas do you think had happened?
I had been in law enforcement for a long time by then, and what we discovered, you and I both, when we went to a seminar after I had retired, is that I had been exposed to 17 really traumatic incidences. And I'm guessing probably 7 to 9 by then.
Yeah.
Prior to our marriage.
Yes. So that's already significant to have been exposed to. So they're like piling on top. So all this stuffing emotion is like getting more and more. And, you know, we talked about that backpack full of poop. And that's exactly what you were doing, is you're throwing this poop into your backpack, hoping it's not going to explode everywhere.
Yeah, just stuffing emotions. I did not know how to process those emotions, much like a lot of people, if they don't have someone that teaches them in school or through a parent or a guardian of how to process emotions, and I just don't know what to do with them. And I sure didn't believe in therapy.
Yeah. What was that like running from all that pain?
It's more of I internalized the pain inside of me. It felt like I was the only one in the entire world that was experiencing what I was experiencing, and like I was on this island of pain that no one else would ever really understand. If I were to share this with somebody, they're going to think I'm so weak that I can't handle life, that I can't handle these things. I mean, I'm around some really top-notch law enforcement officials who seem to have their junk together, who seem to have whatever it takes to be in this career field. And I don't see them sharing their emotions or talking about how therapy is really helping them process life. I don't hear any of that. Mm-hmm. So I have no baseline of what to do with this.
Yeah, and I would say you were one of those who looked like they had it all together because everything that we've shared from last episode to this episode, I had no idea. I know now. And that's what you're sharing in these chapters is how it really was for you. But on the outside, you looked strong and like you had everything together. And so the fast forward of this progression was shocking to me because you did portray that you had it all together.
It reminds me of the story where Jesus in the Bible is talking to the Pharisees, and he's talking about, you clean the cup on the outside, all the time. Make it look really pretty, that cup on the outside. But on the inside, it's dirty and nasty, and it is filthy. And you don't spend your time cleaning that cup, that inside. Yeah. That's the way I experienced life. Is I had this dirtiness, this nastiness on the inside of me where this pain was coming from, where that was. But on the outside of me, it did not appear that way.
Yeah.
I wore the right clothes. I said the right things. I had the right relationships and the right cars in the right house.
Right. That facade. Right. Oh, the fig leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had that.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And I was never known.
Right.
And I didn't know
Truly
who I
known.
was. No.
No intimacy there because you had walls.
That's right.
All right, let's jump back in.
Let's do it. Oh, the incident. It was the one that altered everything in my own life and many others around me. One evening on duty, I was part of a crack cocaine drug arrest of a young black male. It was his third plus offense of the same charge, and he knew it. He knew that if convicted in South Carolina, he would get a life sentence. And this is a very long story cut short, is that during his detention, he hung himself. And another officer and I discovered him and provided CPR before he was taken to the hospital. And however, he did not make it. My supervisor asked the dispatch officer to call in all upper supervision from our agency, as well as all the other law enforcement agencies that would come to help with what to do next. I have never experienced anything like this before. And typically when a death happens in police custody, anyone involved is investigated by multiple independent agencies to ensure that foul play is not involved on behalf of the police officers. And this takes a lot of time. However, the community wasn't interested in time. And I understand and agree with them. A young black man went into the police department alive and well, and he came out of the police department a few hours later, deceased and in the ambulance. The community and family had questions, very valid and important questions. However, due to old department policies, our agency was unfortunately unable to answer any of these questions. We could only speak to the other law enforcement agencies who were investigating us. And this, of course, was like a wildfire to the community who had experienced racial tension for decades within the community. Protesters were bussed in to protest and hold signs and burn flags on the lawn of the police department. It was a tense and scary time for our law enforcement agency. Shortly after this, I was told my name was mentioned in the newspaper as one of the 2 officers involved, and protesters were holding signs and calling for us to be fired. I was told that a nationally known political candidate was given a private tour of the police jail cells and was able to observe the autopsy photos, and then afterwards he mentioned to the media that he thinks the police are to blame for the death. Many local officers' lives were threatened after this incident, including mine. When someone shot at our house about a month or so after the incident, I felt the need to carry a gun with me after this. This was also the incident that was a catalyst for what later became my diagnosis of PTSD. I didn't know this then, but my life was dramatically altered after this tragic death of this young man.
What are you experiencing right now as you just finished reading that?
Heavy. Heaviness.
Yeah.
Man, this was a season of our life that we relived over and over and over, at least for 7 years that I was civilly sued for the death. Mm-hmm. And I had to experience it every single year. Mm-hmm. And revisit it.
It also is the incident that created a life of chaos.
It did. And I
never
feel
stopped.
Heaviness because I'm speaking from a point of view that I still have my life, and this young man doesn't have his, and there's a heaviness in that. And he was such a young man.
Yeah.
You know, there's a heaviness and a loss of potential in his life.
Yeah, I remember when we were going through that, I was so grateful for the way you went about everything because you were innocent. You did not do anything wrong and you were cleared. But that wasn't enough, you know, for the community, and you were accused of murder on television.
Yeah.
What was that like, being innocent and being accused in that way so publicly?
Yeah. I'm not new, obviously. I'm not new at being accused of something I've never done. I mean, I was thinking back to Jesus. You know, that he was accused of so many things, of wrong that he did and he never did. And he told us that we will be accused and wrongfully accused. And I experienced that, a wrongful accusation, and it's really like challenging to my identity and core of, I know that I didn't do those things, and yet I'm being accused by people around me, the public, and I'm basically being convicted in the court of a public opinion of I did. And multiple people, I mean, they really think, or at least they thought, I did. Mm-hmm. That's really tough. That's really tough for me.
This was in a time long before racial tension really became strong, especially in law enforcement, right. Which I'm really grateful for, because once you were out of law enforcement, we watched other officers go through this, and it was 100 times worse for them than it was for us. But it was horrible to go through. I mean, our house being shot at was extremely scary, and it created a life of chaos and fear. Yeah. Constantly looking over our shoulders. And
yeah, that's the paranoia that I experienced, because everywhere I went, I had a gun on me after that. And I was always paranoid. I mean, there's a certain sense of, I guess you could say, safety built into law enforcement and into this career field, but I definitely experienced it on a higher level then of just awareness, situational awareness, more so than I ever have.
Heightened is an understatement. Man.
I guess you did experience it on the other side of me.
Woo. I just felt like we couldn't go anywhere again. I didn't know if we'd ever go out in public and it be normal.
Yeah.
Explain a little bit about, like, we know now that this incident was the catalyst that really sparked PTSD, and it took time to develop. But looking back, like, what were the symptoms that you can see now that you were experiencing that were like red flags that this is progressing?
Well, you mentioned one of them, and that is the paranoia, the safety consciousness, increased tension. Like, I became way more aggressive in my behavior. I'm trying to think of the word, but
Agitated?
Yes, agitated. I would very, very agitated at things. Like, you would say something, and
Smallest thing.
the smallest things would set me off around people, around the citizens I was around, and around my family. The smallest things would just send me into a rage. Like, so much anger that was coming out of me, paranoia,
Depression.
I started having a good bit of depression where I didn't want to leave the house. I felt like this. I actually stopped doing physical fitness. I stopped taking care of myself. I disconnected from relationships. I became more isolated.
We're going to talk about all of that in the next episode too, from my perspective, watching you go through this. So you're going to want to tune in for that.
It's just now coming to me, but I'm pretty sure I started acting out more during that time too.
Probably to soothe or escape the pain.
Yeah, so go into things that I think I increased my alcohol, increased pornography use and self-pleasure, and just things that would help numb me from the feelings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Escape.
Yeah, and there's multiple types of PTSD too, we've discovered. They're not all the same.
Yeah, I think there's 5 different levels of PTSD, and they're different.
Yeah, so
you experienced a particular kind,
right?
And I did as well.
Right, and we're going to go into the different ways that PTSD is formed. But a lot of times we associate it with military and police. Like, that's just, PTSD is just a thing that they go through because it's traumatic events.
Yes.
And that is just not true, because PTSD can be on so many different levels. And we just want to raise awareness that there are a lot of people out there that are really struggling with different variations of PTSD. It's post-traumatic stress disorder. And the brain experiences trauma different for each person. And so it could be something like a betrayal causes PTSD, or a traumatic event like this. And then there's a wide variety in between.
Yeah, there's one called uncomplicated, where it is just a one single event like what you experienced. Yeah. And not uncomplicated in the sense that you didn't experience something that was complicated, but uncomplicated in the sense that it's not a multiple traumatic event, a spirit experience that is compiled onto each other. Right,
exactly. And I want to touch on, like, spiritual warfare, because the enemy loves some PTSD. Right? Because it keeps us stuck in the past on repeat thought patterns and behaviors, which means we can't heal and move forward. And I watched that, this was the first event, and we're talking about PTSD because that's what came from it. But this was further down the road too. And I watched how the enemy kept you stuck and you could not heal.
I could not see a way out. And you may be
No.
watching this, and it may not be you that's experiencing this, but it may be someone you love that's experiencing this. And I'm telling you what Adele's saying, that I could not see anything different. Like, there's no way you could speak to me and say, hey, here's the facts about what's going on with you right now. Here's how you can effectively work through this. And here's how your future is going to be on the other side of it. And everything's going to be fine. Here's a process that will get you through it. You could have told me that. I wouldn't have heard you.
Well, as a victim mentality, you can't hear that.
Yeah, none of it would have been true if you would have told me.
Right. Right. And that's what the enemy loves. And so whether it's you're struggling with betrayal, PTSD, like the enemy wants to keep you stuck in the past of that betrayal, because he knows if he can keep you stuck back there in the grief and the pain and the repeated thought loop patterns that are making you miserable, then you're not going to get the healing that God has available.
Yeah, that's one of the things we actually teach in our program is the 80-20 rule, where the enemy will whisper these lies and keep me stuck, keep me turning up that volume over and over and over. And I have this loop that keeps going and going, and
Yes.
it's all about me.
Yes. And in fact, just quick pause, we did revamp this program that you're talking about, the Becoming Whole and Complete. And it is phenomenal for healing. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I need something like that, go check out that program. It will help you find healing. It'll help you get healing from all this past, from trauma, from whatever it is that you've experienced, and however the enemy has been attacking you, there's healing available. And that program walks you right through it. So just wanted to quickly say that.
You can get it from our website.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about other traumas that people develop. And we're just kind of reading through these because we pulled this from Google.
Yeah, so I think we should do it quickly. Natural disasters, there's maybe some serious accidents that you've experienced.
Car accidents, plane accidents.
Medical trauma.
Like a serious illness or medical procedure, especially for children.
Yeah, witnessing extreme violence.
And that could be like a robbery or anything like that. That's a violent crime.
There's bullying, domestic violence. You know, I've in law enforcement, I can't tell you how many domestic violence calls I've been to, and some of them are brutal.
Yeah.
And repeated.
Yep. Relationship betrayal, which we've already talked about. Sexual assault. That for sure.
Childhood neglect and the loss of a loved one.
Yep.
Listen, we're not saying anything profound. These are just all experiences that we can experience in life that are heavy.
Yeah.
Hard to really process and deal with on our own.
Right. And so let's jump into how can people effectively and in a healthy way process through PTSD.
So maybe you have experienced PTSD, and I just want to be the first one to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're going through what you're going through. I can't even imagine what you're experiencing. You know, I experienced my own thing, but in the coaching of other people, everybody experiences their life and their mental health differently. And so I just want to be the first to say I'm sorry. Also, I want to give you some tips and some things to work through PTSD. But you know what I experienced, and what I mentioned to you earlier, is I did not want to even work on me. I didn't want to look at me to work on anything. I became a victim, and it all became about me, and I had a difficult time hearing anything outside of that, and I had a difficult time knowing there's hope. And so what you mentioned earlier is if you're not experiencing hope, borrow ours. I was told that one time in my deepest and darkest time in my life, and I said, I feel hopeless. And he said, brother, I've been there, and you can borrow mine. Borrow mine for now. And then when you get to that point, you'll have your hope. Man,
You're getting touched.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good friend. Because that was a dark time.
Yeah.
And I felt hopeless.
It was a dark time. And so we want to encourage you, don't stay stuck like Travis did. Like, we're sharing the unhealthy way that you processed through this was not getting help.
No.
But we want to share ways that you can help yourself and get professional help as well that will really help you move forward and leave PTSD in the past where it belongs.
And there's so many great, healthy ways to do this. And listen, I want you to try this on like a hat. You know, you put it on. If you don't like it, take it off. But let's do like a 1% change. Just 1%. Just something really small. And as you're doing that over time, you're going to find that your life is going to be way different than it ever was over here.
Mm-hmm. But
because
it takes
you're showing
something.
up different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It takes something to get to the point of doing these things. And it's important.
One of the first things is developing a good, healthy routine in your life, your physical health, the food that you put into your body, the sleep that you get. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yep. Exercise, balanced meals, things like that are so important. And then practicing relaxation techniques, like when panic attacks come on, having good breathing, deep breathing. And that is actually proven to lower anxiety.
It does. Try it right now. Mm-hmm. Pause this video and try what we call box breathing, where you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, and then you wait for 4, just like a box. Mm-hmm. Try that for a rotation of 3-4 times, and you're going to feel
instant. Brings the heart rate down.
Such a relief, instantaneous. Mm-hmm. The next thing is just meditating on God's word. You know, last night when I was having a difficult time, I read Psalm 23 over and over out loud. So much peace after that.
Yeah.
Meditating on God's word.
Yeah. Connecting with loved ones. You know, PTSD, it is a normal instinct to want to isolate. And so leaning into the opposite, like really connect socially with people who love and care about you.
It's good to speak. It's good to speak. What you get out, it's like going from the darkness where the enemy wants you to be to the light where Jesus wants you to be, and there's healing in it. It loses value. What you have significance of in your mind loses value when you speak it. And go to a therapist, go to a counselor, speak to somebody who you trust, and tell them what it is that is going on for you.
Yeah.
The things that's taking up the real estate in your mind.
Yeah. Finding your identity and your purpose. I know watching you do that when you did get to the other side was powerful.
Yeah, let's just briefly talk about that. Your identity is Genesis 1:26-28, and Genesis 5:1. It says you're made in God's image. You're His son. You are His
daughter.
You're His son. Your daughter. His son. His daughter. He loves you dearly. He is your father, and He has adopted you into His sonship, into His kingship. And that is who you are. And then we have a purpose. And your purpose, Jesus defined as to love. Love God with everything you have. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So first, God loved so that you could love. Then you received the love from Him so that you could love yourself. And when you love yourself, you can love others effectively, and you can love God with everything you have. Now, that is your identity, and that is your purpose. And we get really confused in life and have some issues around our thinking process when we don't get those correct. So identity is who you are as God's child. Purpose is you're made to love, and that is to love God, love others, and love yourself. But then we have our assignment.
That's our job.
And our assignment changes in the seasons and stages of your life. So it might be parent, it might be military member, it might be a hairstylist, it might be a mom, it might be a husband, it might be a wife. But we have different assignments, and we fulfill our identity and our purpose within our assignment, and our assignment changes.
Yeah.
And that's where the confusion can get, because my identity was I am a cop.
Right.
My
And your
purpose
purpose.
was to go out and make money to fulfill my dreams and my wants and desires, my earthly wants and desires. That was my purpose.
Right.
And totally confused.
Yeah. Totally backwards.
Yeah.
All about you.
So I'm lost when I don't have those.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we want to just really quick touch on forgiveness, because there may be something that happened to you that involves someone else that you need to forgive. And forgiveness is a complex process. And it really is so simple. Like
for
when we
you.
look at it and what God says about it, it's for me, it's for you and your healing. And if you are holding on to unforgiveness, you also have bitterness and resentment that is building on the inside. That is adding to PTSD, anxiety, stress. And so releasing that with forgiving whoever you need to forgive. And maybe it's yourself, maybe it's God, but really looking at forgiveness
Thanks
so
for
that you
saying
can
that.
heal. Yeah.
Yeah, unforgiveness blocks your healing. It blocks your prayers. Unforgiveness is a block.
Yeah, you had a lot of that unforgiveness going on. When I look back at that time, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, God, please forgive me for my unforgiveness.
Yeah.
Professional help, is this where we are?
Yep.
Professional help, it's seeking somebody who specializes in mental health. A coach. Like for us, I am a board-certified master mental health coach with the emphasis on marriage and family. Find somebody who can really work through these issues with you.
Who's trained, because we do hear people go for help, and when they go for help with someone who's not trained to work through things like this, they can intensify the problem.
Yeah.
So just be careful who you go to. It
And we've
really
heard
matters.
those stories. We've heard those stories.
Heard a lot.
Therapy is really good, and it may take a moment to find the right person for you. Ask God to give you wisdom around that, and ask God to put the people in your pathway that would be right for you.
Yeah, it seems like so daunting to be like, where do I start? You want to start with other people who have experienced this, who got the help, and what they did, and listening and starting there. Exploring treatment options. There are a lot of options out there that we just weren't aware of because we didn't have resources and help. But one of them is EMDR. And we've talked about that briefly on several other episodes, but huge value in EMDR. That is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And it helps get the repeated patterns unstuck in our brain.
It worked for me and Adele. We both went through EMDR several times for different reasons, and it has worked for both of us. There's brain spotting that's very similar to EMDR, and there's
cognitive processing therapy, CPT, all similar stuff.
Yeah, it's being able to process.
Yeah.
There's another one that I just find amazing, and you can go back and watch one of our other episodes. It's called MDMA and Jesus. It's one of our friends who had probably one of the most severe PTSD that I've ever
from
met.
Childhood sexual trauma.
Yeah, it's a story that just, you'll have to go read his book and listen to some of his things, but I can't believe the things that happened to him. And he went through MDMA experimental treatment and has had just drastic changes of improvement in his life.
Yes, it got those patterns unstuck and released old memories that he didn't even know he had.
Yeah.
That helped him heal. So
that's a great episode,
super powerful.
or a great interview. Go see that.
So we share all of these things because we really want to encourage you that if you are suffering with PTSD or you know someone who is struggling, we just want to encourage you to get the help and encourage the people you know, support them to get the help that they really need.
So all through this episode, we have explored different things about PTSD, given some great options to be able to have some healing around yourself. And I just want to share there's a possibility of having a great, fulfilling life. John 10:10 says the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. But this is Jesus talking. There's a second half to that, but he has come to give you life to the full. And that's available for all of us. And I'm not trying to make light of, the acute need of needing medication. We're not saying anything about that. But we are saying there are options that God would want you to go to him and receive the peace that he would want to give you through this experience too.
Yeah, we didn't actually touch on medication, but we do believe that doctors can be a big help in this area if you find the right one that's really going to listen to your needs and what you're going through and prescribe the right thing for you. So if that's something that you're back and forth on, go to the Holy Spirit. He will show you what's right for you, because medication really did help you during that time.
I really needed medication, and it was very beneficial for me.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing it up. So thank you for...
Well, I just want to say thank you for sharing today so vulnerably on a story that is really heavy, a story that has taken you a long time to heal. Many, many years of healing from this one incident. And I imagine that people have gotten healing from your shares today. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
And also just remind you that healing is available for you. We just want to thank you for joining us today and encourage and invite you to subscribe. We release 3 videos a month that will help you in your healing and maybe somebody you know. So if you know someone who's struggling with PTSD, send them this episode. Share it with them so that they can get the hope and healing as well.
That would be my prayer for all of you watching this, is that God will heal your heart in the name of Jesus.
Yeah. We'll see you in the next episode, and we look forward to seeing you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, and welcome to the Noble Marriage,
Bop.
Hey, welcome to the Noble Marriage, where we bring real, raw, relatable conversations. Conversations, right?
Bloop. Take 3.
Hey, and welcome to the Noble Marriage, where we bring... All right, I got this.
Take 4.